Alright, so in this, the first thing that you need to do is look at the directions given to you on this page somewhere here. These directions are always fixed. So what we need to do will clearly depend on these directions. Let's see. When you say discuss how well reasoned you find this argument, we'll try to understand every word here. Well reasoned means what exactly? Line of reasoning exactly is what? Use of evidence is what? Okay, assumptions, weaken, strengthen, evaluate. All of these would give you some memories, I'm sure. So strengthen, weaken, evaluate, assumption, reasoning, evidence, reasoned. Okay. So basically, if you are very good at critical reasoning, there is another section to check your CR skills basically. Okay. Another section to check your skills of critical reasoning only. Is your writing skill important in this case, or is your reasoning skill important? So the GMAT says it really checks reasoning much more than writing. So don't bother too much about writing style, don't bother too much about language, linguistics, vocabulary, grammar, mechanics, punctuation. Any of these things will not make much difference. Any kind of flowery language, any special writing skill or anything, anyway these days is considered bad. If you use any flowery kind of language, it's considered bad in all possible forms, not just in business, everywhere. So be very straightforward, write with punch, but write very straightforward language. So what is looked at is your reasoning in the argument should be more important than your writing skills per se. The other question can come, why is it being asked? Because my reasoning has been checked in CR. Why should I have another section? So what's the answer to that? Why do they check AWA first? If CR is good enough indicator of whatever is written here, why is this checked actually? Here you have to articulate one. The other thing that business schools always have seen this particular bit, people may be very good at reasoning, but the basic skills of writing, very basic skills of usage of language, so that you know that structure formation etc. Especially for people who are not really native speakers of English, they find it very challenging sometimes to cope in a business school. So the Koreans, let's say, the Japanese, the Chinese, the ones that have not had very good upbringing in English per se, and they get they rather get their essays, the admission essays written by somebody else, and they make it sometimes. So this is exactly the reason why this was introduced. Some basic semblance of writing should be there. The other thing about this is how much exactly are we supposed to score really. So they say minimum grade is 4, anything above 4 is safe. I would also believe anything above 4 is safe, but you won't get 4, you will always get a score more than 4 even if you do possibly the most average job. Automatically 5 is a very simple, very easy score to attain. Any of you have written the real GMAT can confirm this. Tell me, what have your scores been if you have written the real test? Anybody who has written it before? What was your score? 4. Did you not pay attention? Okay. 4 is good enough though. Yeah, anybody else who got a grade? Okay. I think this is one section in which you disturb people more than people disturb you, because while you are typing somebody else might get really disturbed, and really bad on part of people who schedule exam slots, because they schedule exam slots anytime. It's not 1 to 5, so they'll have all the people from 1 to 5. You might be called in at 11 o'clock and somebody might be called in at 1 o'clock. While your verbal is on, somebody might be typing the essay. So it really happens sometimes, and they give you some earplugs for that and so on. Coming to this part right now. So as I said, so many things. So this is what will happen in the argument essay. For 30 minutes you are supposed to find flaws in an argument. Okay. This is your job, flaw analysis. All you have to do is flaw analysis of all kinds. So what are the flaws in an argument? One can be in terms of evidence. Evidence can be incomplete. That means facts are not enough to draw the conclusion. That could be evidence, number one. The other could be evidence is irrelevant. And the third is evidence could be misleading. The way I am telling you, write it this way, you will ensure a grade of 6 very, very easily. So, do you read the word use of evidence in the things that are underlined? Use of evidence. These are the three ways evidence could be used. It's always going to be a badly reasoned argument. You are asked discuss how well reasoned. The answer is not at all, because the argument will be badly reasoned always. In a well reasoned argument, you cannot make any kind of change. So 2 plus 2 is called a well reasoned argument. 2 plus 2 equal to 4 is a well reasoned argument. Nobody can criticize this particular thing or something like that. Nobody can find fault. That's not what it is. So the argument will always be badly reasoned. So let's see one by one what all is given to you. First thing is discuss how well reasoned. The argument will always be badly reasoned. How is an argument badly reasoned? How is an argument badly reasoned? So first thing is evidence is incomplete. That means facts are not enough. That means it assumes something. Assumption is the worst flaw in an argument. Assumption is a flaw basically. So when is an assumption made? When all the facts are not presented. So if I say I need 10 facts to make a decision, I am given only 3 facts and the decision is made. If you remember in assumption, exactly this is what we used to do. In evaluate the argument we used to do the same thing. In weaken, strengthen we do the same thing. In flaw we do the same. So something like I need 1, 2, 3 facts to reach the conclusion. I am given only 1 and 2, let's say 3 is not given. This is called evidence is incomplete. There is nothing wrong, but it is incomplete, that's it. The second can be evidence is irrelevant. We are given the government should invest in city roads and the example given is of rural roads, let's say. And this kind of scope shift is very common. We have seen that so many times. So this is basically a problem of scope shift. So many times you will see in every argument on flaw or assumption, scope shift happens again and again. It could be a bad sample, it could be anything, but irrelevant argument. We have seen in flaw, if you remember in CR, some questions that some people who were given a surgery for first, they were good people, let's say. So this argument is irrelevant because they cannot go out and then we say they committed fewer crimes because of the surgery. So many ways. And the third could be evidence is misleading. Let's say facts are talking about numbers and the conclusion is talking about percentage. His salary went up, his friend's salary went up by a higher number. So his friend got a bigger percentage hike. This kind of a thing. Misleading evidence. So when you say use of evidence, this is exactly what the meaning is. If the evidence is incomplete, there is surely an assumption. If the evidence is irrelevant, it's a flaw. If the evidence is misleading, it's definitely a flaw. So these are the basic things. Because we are doing after all a flaw analysis, this is the first thing. What is the meaning of the next word? Line of reasoning. If you remember this diagram, this is called line of reasoning. How facts give out the conclusion. This is called line of reasoning. This is the meaning. So the line of reasoning is in one answer, one word, it's always faulty. Always, simple. This is the answer. So if you are asked, let's see first, discuss how well reasoned you find this argument. The correct answer is the argument is badly reasoned, straight. In your discussion, be sure to analyze the line of reasoning. The answer is always faulty. So you will have to write the line of reasoning is faulty. Use of evidence, you will have to say whether it is limited, whether it is misleading, or it is irrelevant, or both, or all three. All of these can be possible. You need to understand what assumptions are there. So you have to point out every assumption that is possible. Because it's a practical real life example, assumption will not be so difficult as it is in CR. In fact, assumptions will be very easy in this case. Because it's a real life example usually. So all the assumptions you can mention. How do you weaken this argument? You have to write that by extra information that you can think about. How to strengthen the argument? We'll have to think about that, and how to evaluate the argument. All this has to be discussed clearly. Everything is related to critical reasoning. If you look at all of that is this. Questionable assumptions, alternative explanations or counter examples might weaken the conclusion. Can also discuss what sort of evidence would strengthen or refute the argument. Refute is the same as weaken, so I can write refute here itself. What will make it more logically sound? Logically sound is the same as strengthen. And what, if anything, would help you better evaluate its conclusion? So once again, I can have my entire skeleton. What all am I supposed to discuss? I am supposed to discuss flaws, I am supposed to discuss line of reasoning, I am supposed to discuss use of evidence, assumptions, weaken, strengthen and evaluation. Basically these are the things. Well reasoned means badly reasoned. It's going to be badly reasoned, it's never going to be well reasoned. So that's the flaw. And it's very easy to write if you understand that it is after all critical reasoning. Commonsensical approach will not work here. Commonsensical approach. So in CR also, if you don't focus on the conclusion, you tend to answer that is very tempting, but that is not the right answer. Same thing here. Be very specific to the conclusion. So let's do the first sample task here and just have a complete discussion. You have enough time to write because you have 30 minutes and you will usually run out after 20 minutes and say that I am not sure what else to write. So don't worry about the time, usually that happens. So timing won't be a problem. So let's see this argument and let's have a discussion on this. When the Apogee company had all its operations in one location, it was more profitable than it is today, so it is a fact. Therefore, the company should close down field offices, conduct all its operations from a single location. Conclusion. Such centralization would improve profitability by cutting costs and helping the company maintain better supervision of employees. Assumption. Some kind of assumption. So clearly, should close down all its field offices. Do you think all the facts are available? So we have our first thing. It's not a very well reasoned argument because premise to conclusion, all facts are missing in a sense. Come up with your answer in the sense, what are the flaws, how is the line of reasoning bad, how is the use of evidence limited or something, how do you weaken this argument, how to strengthen, how to evaluate. Think about it, we will have a full discussion on one argument, that should give you an idea. Please give me something related to this argument. Why do you think it's a bad conclusion? First of all, it's a badly reasoned argument after all. So tell me, why is it badly? Okay, so I cannot. Perfectly fine. That's an assumption they're making. What else? The expansion.
About the location or
There may be some alternate reason, right? That is what you're trying to say? 1 second please. For the failure in the new location. So one by one, sorry. Yeah.
Supervising employees closely can lead to a bad work ethic.
So basically that's also a flawed assumption, that all the employees at one place can be managed better. In fact, this is not correct mostly. HR theory tells divide people in smaller teams. That's what HR tells. So usually it's not a very good idea to have a very big team at one place. And that's why companies don't have all the offices at one place. It's for many other reasons as well.
Basically, whether it is cheaper to actually have, all operations in one place, reservists, spread out.
Very important, because they are talking about profitability. So cheaper versus more costly. Maybe the headquarters is at a location that is very, very expensive to expand, and getting everyone today to that place may be very difficult. In the past, maybe it was very easy. The company had maybe very few employees. Now the employees are too many number. Getting them to accommodate at one place may be in fact more costly and may reduce profits. Quite possible.
We can go about saying more about your external factors that can affect.
Totally, we can. That will be in the weakened part of it. So which all? Let's say for example.
Second, we don't know what percentage of cost is this operation.
Absolutely. So data not enough for sure. There is no question about it. Not enough data for sure. I mean, if you say on the basis of one fact that it was earlier more profitable, a company could really take a decision. I'm sure this is totally not there. This would mean tons of data for a consulting company first to even say yes, no, or to even start the work. So not possible. Anything else?
We don't know the revenues, whether the revenues have gone up.
Data not enough in a lot of ways. Cost. So there's so many things that can be there. Anything else? Give me more basic idea now. You were saying?
I was saying more about external factors, like we were talking about costs probably being high, so it could probably go on the basis of finding the right sort of labor, or maybe that was an issue, or
Okay.
try and go on to the nitty-gritty of how a company was probably run, try weakening it through that.
So many factors can come in. The moment you talk about weakening, you can bring in whatever you want, because weakening is always with if true. If true means new information. And new information you can introduce whatever you want. Yes, please. Anything else? Some more flaw in this? Something else?
We're not sure if we can actually work with the central government.
Sorry, we are not sure.
Line of business, we're not sure.
Yeah, so you don't know what all. So you don't know costs. You don't know revenue. You don't know percentage profit. You don't know what the company does. Because a company with centralization may completely come to a standstill if it is a retail kind of company. But it also depends. If it's an internet driven company, maybe from one location it can work. So it's important what it does, what is its reach, is it global or local or city or what it is, etc. Any other thing?
Losing the field offices is a loss.
Yes, you may lose customers, you may lose revenue, you may lose profits, you may lose talent, you may lose your logistical advantage, anything, you may lose many reasons.
Maybe in the past there was no competition for what products it was manufactured.
Totally. So past cannot predict the future. Maybe in the past there was no competition. Future right now there is intense competition. So it makes no sense to come back to the original location. There can be so many more reasons. Any other thing?
Maybe there will be one or two centers which are causing this problem. So instead of concentrating on that,
It could be that out of the 20 locations, only a couple of locations are incurring such huge losses that the company overall is gaining less. So maybe 18 offices are doing very well, only 2 are doing badly, and so badly that they are bleeding totally.
the first sentence is that the company might be working in a particular
quite possible, new product line, new anything, new market, new geography. Etc. etc. Quite a lot of possibilities here. Anything else? Absolutely. So alternate reasons, we have done this clearly. Anything else? I still don't think I've got all the answers right now. So I'm just thinking. No, he's not assuming anything like that. He's not assuming anything like that. You can't say that. You can't say he's assuming like that. That's
all operations from a single location might actually lead to a loss.
that's not necessary once again. So you have to actually say why they may lead to loss. So these are the reasons we're anyway talking about. Any other thing? Any other thing? Okay, so let's see, our structure is very straightforward. We'll talk about the flaws first. There are 3 flaws in this argument. One is cause and effect flaw first. When it comes to formalizing your logic, these small things are very important. If I say, if A happened before B, does it imply that, or does it not imply that A caused B? If A happened before B, does it mean A caused B necessarily? By no logic this. But right now this is what the author is trying to imply, that okay, the company expanded first and the profitability went down later. This happened first, this happened as the second event. It does not mean A caused B. Expansion may have no role in lower profitability. There may be some more reasons, but not expansion per se. There may be so many other reasons. Is this is this clear first of all? There may be. So this is what, when you say A caused B, you can always come back with C may have caused B, and this C can be 100 reasons. So many of you were talking about alternate logic. This is the alternate logic. Now let's say, I'll just try to give you a list of logic according to me, and then you can actually add to this. Suppose in the new location, the company has absolutely new product line, and people don't know the new product at all of the company. Maybe people in some country identify GE with bulbs only, and GE Finance goes there, GE Capital goes there. People don't identify GE with capital, let's say, in some country. It's a big problem that can be there. So maybe advertising costs are exceptionally high in the new country. Maybe the government is very hostile to the company. You might say the government is hostile, how is this possible? People may be very hostile. Does it happen practically or not? Please tell me an example. People or government are hostile. Sorry? US government is hostile to Samsung. You've been reading a lot of late. Okay, could you really say that? But okay, I get it. Yeah.
Sunny, when you're talking about such examples, right? So when we are writing it, do you think it's preferable to probably lay out such examples?
I'll tell you how to write it. I'll tell you how to write it. So what not to write, what to write, I'll come to that surely. Okay, so as she's raised the point, when you say don't write the word General Electric, you can just say conglomerate with several product portfolios going to some other country. Don't write the name of the company. That's it. Everything else is possible. Okay. So 2 or 3 things that have to be avoided. One, you have to avoid the word I. In an argument, never even think about writing I feel, I agree, I disagree, I believe. This word is not supposed to be written. So completely in a third person narrative. I'll tell you how to write it, we'll come to that. The second thing is, any example has to be a generic example. So Walmart has to be a retail store. It cannot be written as Walmart. Okay. General Motors has to be an automobile company. If a particular country's example, don't write the name of the country, generalize. Specific examples are not supposed to be mentioned. Okay. Let's see what other reasons could be there. There can be so many things. The competition is very intense in the new location. When we are talking about government is hostile, there are so many examples along with you can give. When Tata Nano was in West Bengal, it's people and government both were very hostile. It could be very, very ordinary, it's quite possible. You may say the company operates in very heavy products or projects that take very long to gestate and finally yield profits. So the gestation period is right now on. Maybe the profits will come later. I can just go on with this. You can invent your own 100 reasons. Anything, you just mention 3 or 4 just to say something else may be responsible. Yeah. What if we'll come to the strength and bit then. When you're finding flaws, you can't think about the correctness of flaws. We are given that choice in the strength part. We'll come to that. We are right now saying it's a bad decision. Then we'll try to say it's a good decision also. Let's see. So there can be so many reasons why the company does not do well in the new location. It has nothing to do with the fact that expansion is the reason. I can give something else is the reason. So that is cause effect flaw. Analogy flaw you've already mentioned. What happened in the past may not happen in the future is analogy. They are assuming that the business landscape will remain the same when the company comes back to the central location. So what may change? Can you give me an example? What may change from previous time to this time? This time. Competition may change completely, prices of land may change, product line may change, inflation may change. Sorry? The nature of business may not be amenable. Yes, absolutely right. Yeah. Rules, regulations may change completely. So anything. So analogy does not fit in. That is why analogy flaw. The author assumes that the business landscape generally remains the same in the previous and the new situations. The number percentage flaw nobody pointed out. So I will give you some time. Where is the number percentage flaw in this argument? Yeah. So I didn't get what the number percentage flaw is in this. Perfect. Imagine this situation. Wow, this is very good. Suppose in the central location the company was $1 million revenue and 20% profitability. Profit is different. Profitability is different, and the word profit is not used in this argument at all. Profitable and profitability. So 200,000 after this was the profit. Now the revenues are, let's say, 1 billion and 10% profit. Still it is 100 million. Who says if the profitability is low, the company is doing badly? That's what. So the author is implying, or author is deliberately misleading the reader that if profitability is low, it is a it's a gloomier prediction than the other way around possible. So it's a better situation in fact. In fact, the entire situation will be better than what the author is trying to portray. And that's where misleading with number percentage comes in. What did you feel when you read it for the first time? The author is trying to portray a bad picture, good picture. As of now, it may be this situation. It's a very good picture. 200,000, you would never come back to 200,000 after 100 million, I'm sure. So clearly, that's a much, so percentage wise it has slipped. And this is true for almost all businesses, almost all the businesses. percentage revenue, percentage profit is usually low or very high for big businesses. Exceptions are always there. You have IT companies and web companies that are exceptions. Normally for big businesses, margins are very low. A tea stall around the corner may have higher margin than Walmart. Okay, Walmart's margins are 3 to 4%. That's the profit margin of Walmart. It's the biggest or the second biggest company in the world as the year may be, but that's what. A tea stall across the road may have 20% profit. So that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't matter really. Percentage versus number is a big flaw in this. So this was cause and effect analogy, number, percentage. So we have mentioned the flaws. Assumption. One assumption has already been covered in the flaw, that the author assumes that business landscape remains the same. Second assumption is it's easier to manage employees when they are larger in number at one location. That is a flawed assumption totally. It's always more difficult to manage employees. It is written it will lead to better supervision. It's only an assumption. Usually it is not the case. Next thing, how do I weaken this argument? To weaken the argument, you have to first think, why does a company usually expand? So you want more of something, you want less of something, something like that. That's usually the reason. You want either more of something or less of something. So you want more of revenue, profit, brand, geography, customers, talent, so on and so forth. You want more of certain things. You want less of cost, processes. Okay, you want less of government regulation. You want, what all do you want less? Risk. Any other thing that you want less? In an organization, what do you want more and what do you want less? Think about it. Less competition, perfectly correct. Less attrition. What did you say? Attrition? Okay. Okay, fine. So you want these usual things. Now let's say more customers would be lost. So that's a weakening scenario. More talent, maybe people don't move to the central location. Weakening scenario. Geographical advantage anyway is lost. Brand is definitely lost. Profits and revenues may also be lost. So all of these will become major reasons for the company not to think so. Cost. If a company went to China to set up a factory at low cost, definitely that cost advantage would go, or maybe the earlier BPO advantage in India, that would go. So something like that. You don't want too many processes, that is why you outsource. So that may go. You don't want too much government regulation, that's why you go to other countries. Quite a lot of possibility. In fact, Mittal Steel earlier, that has expanded to so many countries because of the reason that a lot of governments just do not let them survive, and a lot of governments are very welcoming. So it opens a lot of places just because very little government intervention is there. You don't want to suffer risk because of one market or because of one calamity or something. So you would broad base your risk, called hedging. Competition. So you go to blue ocean markets, newer markets where very little competition exists, all this normal. Attrition, I don't know, I didn't think of it, but yeah, could be a reason. But because of attrition or low attrition, I don't think expansion decisions are usually taken. I'm not sure though. Do you take expansion decision, let's go to this country because people leave this less often? I don't know, but could be possible. It's a possibility. The other regions could be, other reasons rather to expand could be mergers and acquisitions, could be cultural, and could be completely new products or services. The company wants to do certain things that it feels will not really survive or thrive in the existing markets, all of these will also go. So you can always say so many things will be to its disadvantage. Whatever the plus of an expansion that could have accrued to the company would be lost. Now comes the more challenging part. How do you strengthen this argument? So far you've been criticizing the decision. It's a bad decision. It should not centralize. Now you will have to say it's a good decision. So how is it a good decision suddenly? How could this prove to be a good decision? Centralize. Negative things turn out to be good for them. Something else. No. That's not the way business thinks. Please think business also at the same time.
All the cost is from one place, not all the places.
Better synchronization.
Possibly no. Possibly no.
Better synchronization of the teams.
See, people will first think customers. If you say that better synchronization, but everything has to hinge around the first idea that you don't want to lose customers.
Major market share, which is in one area you were talking about.
Operational efficiency and excellence.
All that is fine, but it is take a business decision. Don't take only a lopsided one thing.
Launching a product which has a lot of demand in that area.
I agree, but people will not say that close every other office. When will you say?
Actually increase.
See, all these are side small advantages, but this will not warrant a business to close all the field offices. Important thing is, how do you think close down all the field offices and operate from one look? Whatever you are telling me is a focus. It's not that close everything else. Okay.
We are facing government regulation problems in different offices.
I think you've missed the point. See, you still will usually want to sustain, because so I'm saying it's a good decision and you're not giving me the answer. Let's say the company does not, because of the nature of business, it's in fact a bad idea to have many offices. Let's say, suppose it's a company that is into e-book publishing. It can operate from one location, it can sell books online, that's it. So think about something like this that warrants only one location and still it's quite possible. Or a company that sells very rare products, rarely bought products. What could be the rare products, as in what is really rarely bought? Sorry?
One set of fire extinguisher for a company.
Is that a very rarely bought product? That you will need one office? No, think about something more rare. Antiquities. Something else. You're not thinking as rare still. Diamonds. Us Indians, I think. Not really correct. Something else. Think about products that are very rarely purchased and that don't need any marketing. Sorry?
Automobiles or aviation related products or something.
Something even more rarely purchased. So you can actually heighten it to the level that you need not have even one extra office. Nuclear reactors, now you're actually coming. Satellites, fighter planes, etc. Fighter planes would still be purchased. Now imagine this, a company that makes products that are so rare does not need field offices, because only governments will order all this. They will know where to order, when to order. So this, if you say that one particular region is making losses, so stop it, that's not the way business decisions will be usually taken. So it may be a very sensible idea for the company to operate from one location if it is in products or services such as these. On the other hand, take the other extreme. If it's a food chain like McDonald's or Walmart, retail, you can't even think of operating from one location. So it's completely illogical. Completely illogical. So it could be strengthened if the product or service is offered so that you don't need any field offices. Absolute. That means it's a plus for the business to do so. Yes, please. Quite possible. So, quite possible. So why I rejected those answers is not for any other thing they were wrong or right. They do not normally constitute business decisions. Because eventually you would not say that at the cost of my customers, I'd do every other. You don't. In this case, you're not losing your customers. So that's the reason why those answers did not merit as much attention. Let's see, how do you evaluate this option? Evaluate means, as of now, I don't have much enough information. I don't have enough information. I need more information. So if you have to ask only, let's say, 5 questions about this company, what information would you want to know so that you can say, according to you, it's a good or a bad idea? That is what evaluation was. What would you want to know if you want to know a few things? Nature of business for sure. Nature and reach of the business, or global or local or something. What else would you want to know? Actual numbers, basically. What would be the 3 or 4 most critical things that you want to know before you can say it's a good or a bad idea? So talent could be a reason, actual values, numbers could be a reason, so many things. Nature of business is something that told us it's in strengthening the argument we use this as the biggest prop. So nature of business is very important, the reach of business. Why reach is important? Suppose it has 5 offices in 5 continents versus 5 offices within 5 kilometers radius. There is a big difference. You can still think about closing 4 of them. So that reach is also important. So I am just taking extremely different types of examples. That means extreme examples of one side. That's what evaluation is. Just mention this. These 2-3 answers should be known to you before you can make a decision. Yeah. You don't need to comment on that thing because that is beyond the argument once again. I agree. I mean, that could be, when you sit in a boardroom, you don't discuss this way anything. This is a very different approach totally. So when you are analyzing an argument, this is exactly what you need to do. Anything else that you would want to say in this case? Anything else that is not covered? Now how to write, because I have just given you a perspective, but how do you write it? Just make sure you cover flaws, assumptions, weaken, strengthen and evaluate in the same order. That's it. You may write 5 paragraphs, 80 words each at least, 80 to 100 words in the same order. So write flaws, then assumptions, then weaken, then strengthen and then evaluate. Do not write one para of 200 words and another para of 30-40 words. That will not look very good. So 4 to 5 well written 80 to 100 word paragraph should do. Okay, the word I is not required here. I will tell you why it is not required, and the second thing is specifics are not required. Beyond that, I don't think there is any major thing in this. Just make sure you don't write short forms, jargons, all that is given to you. Yeah.
Can we use you as in cannot do this or one would not do this?
One. Don't say the word you in this case. So the writing has to be third person writing. First and second person writing, we, I, you, all these 3 words in fact you can eliminate. Why is it like this? Let's see. You are not giving your opinion here, you are telling a logical critique. What is the difference? No, not that. Opinion is very subjective. So opinion means agree or disagree. Critique means with the same facts, every logical person will come up with the same answer. That's the meaning of a critique. Critiques cannot be very different from the eyes of different people. Logical critiques. So you are not supposed to give your opinion, you are supposed to give your critique, and there is a huge difference. And the moment you say, I feel, I agree, I disagree, you are more likely to give your opinion and not critique. So let's say how to start an argument. I'll give you a sample PDF in which you can see hundreds of answers, but let's say the author of this passage has made 3 serious errors of reasoning. You can say 1, he mistakes coincidence for a cause, something like that. Second, he assumes a lot of things or he believes certain things. Third, number versus percentage jugglery, or he misleads by use. Simple. And then you can mention what all the problems are. I have not mentioned anything like I am doing so, you are doing so, or we are doing so, nothing like that. So logically, if you logically solve a CR question, you should reach the same answer. Same here, if you logically write, your answer should not be very different from somebody else's answer. If in an opinion answer, it's not a debate at all, so these words don't qualify. In fact, the E-rater in your exam, in the argument essay, checks the number of times you write I, we and you. Each time it will deduct some marks, each time. And usually it is the E-rater that checks it first. If the grade is lower than 4, then only a human rater checks. That's the reality. Human rater usually doesn't check it. If you get a grade of 4, nobody checks your essay after that. If it's really less than 4, then the human rater will check and confirm it should be less than 4. Above 4, it's something that it doesn't check really. So certain ways, and it is programmed very well and can actually find out your patterns and so on. It can be programmed pretty well, so that's what it is. Your essays are never read by experts, that is another thing. So usually they are read by high school graduates. So their reason for this is that these people are the ones who are unbiased about a particular subject. So someone who works for a company in a Fortune 500 will have a different view of this idea. Someone who has just graduated from high school will just see the objective part of it. This is what they feel. That simply means you don't have to write a stronger essay, you have to write a longer essay. This is, a longer essay is better than a shorter essay in this context. Because of this reason, people who read it are high school graduates. So the first impression, how long the essay is, and then everything else follows it. That's why nobody fails. Okay. That's why usually nobody fails. Another thing, if you write for 30 minutes, okay, if you decide to write, I am saying the word is because a lot of people sometimes decide not to write this essay for some reason, then you will not get anything less than 4. So nobody usually fails in this section. People who decide not to write will surely fail, but otherwise not. You can imagine if you leave it blank, you can't leave it blank, you have to write at least one word or one letter. Almost, you still get a grade of 2.5. With absolutely blank, you get 2.5. There is no grade less than 2.5 which is practically possible. So should give you some idea in this case. Absolutely no writing will still fetch you 2 points. So 4 is, I think everyone is able to get it. So don't sweat too much about it. What next to do in this? So all the official guide editions, right from 10, 11, 12, 13, they have a constant list of topics. There are more than 100 topics available. Just read only 5 answers one day prior to the exam from this document, okay, AWA Model Answers PDF, and that would be sent to you in the study plan. Just read, don't have to write anything, no practice required, nothing. There is a document I'll send you, AWA Model Answers on this. All your questions in AWA always come from the official guide. Okay? So all questions always from OG. If this were true for quant or verbal, I think we wish, but yeah. But all the answers, all the questions come from official guide. So there is a huge probability that you've read a topic beforehand. Don't waste time, no matter, even if you write it right now, you will get a grade higher than 4. You decide to type for 30 minutes, that's it. Okay, don't worry anything. You just read this and read the document that I'll send you soon. So that is about the AWA part. the remaining part, integrated reasoning, if you have read the recent reports and recent B schools reaction, all the B schools are saying that this year they will not even consider it, most probably. Have you checked that? I'm sure this is circulating. So most of the times it's kind of, because Stanford, Harvard and Wharton, all these schools have come out and said that they would not check integrated reasoning scores. Assuming other schools will also believe so, still, so what I will suggest is, I have put up this video on YouTube. If you want, you can actually watch it. If you have seen, I will send you the link. You can just watch it there, or if you want, you can come for the session tomorrow. Either, it's totally fine, because the same session I am going to have here. If you don't want to pay attention right now to this section, you can do it later. Anytime the same video has been put up, exactly the same video as we do the class here. So anytime you will be sent the link plus the material along with it. Material hard copy you should check right now also, you can just take it. I have seen a couple of things about this section also. A grade of 5 I am sure is very good, and 5 should be obtainable by everyone. Once again, it's not difficult at all. This integrated reasoning section essentially is checking your reading skills. So I am very surprised why the grade comes later, because it's a straightforward right wrong situation, but the grade still comes later for this. Maybe they still check how you've answered or what, because it's pretty objective in nature though, but the grade will come later for this. I still would say you should not take it lightly, because if there are certain schools that look at your score, maybe, I don't know, some schools have very clearly said this. So you may decide to come for the session tomorrow, you may not decide to come for the session, totally right now up to you, but the same session is available as a free video on YouTube also. I am sure some of you may have seen it also, that there is this same thing. So tomorrow we'll do integrated reasoning for the people who come here though, that should be it. So I'll end it here and we'll continue it tomorrow in case you want to attend it tomorrow. Alright? Sure. That's what study plan will tell you. So I'm sending a study plan mail that will tell you what to do next clearly. Yes, please.